Hello, and welcome to episode number 118 for the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal here is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Matt Christian, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty. I'll be your host for this episode. Now, you might wonder why I give the same intro every single time I do the podcast. That's because it might be your first time listening, and I want it to be a great experience, so I do repeat that line every time. So, topic at hand today. Are you looking for the highest and best use for your land? Have you considered building an RV resort? Now, we talk a lot about selling land. We talk a lot about improvements for hunting land, farms, ranches. But this is a topic that it doesn't come up very often. And as we're about to find out, it's a very, very good option. This is a very cool topic. We're talking with Hillary Engler, who is the owner of Paradise Found RV Resort in Theodore, Alabama. Now, I've known Hillary for a while. She's been affiliated with National Land Realty for a while, but I had no idea until we sat down to discuss this podcast that she was a co-founder of this unique business. And honestly, it had me researching the topic for probably the last 3 weeks on how I might build one. It's a really, really cool business opportunity. I'm excited to share it with you. Now sit back and enjoy. Okay, so I am sitting here with Hillary Engler, and out of Alabama, and we're old acquaintances, right? Like, you started out working with National Land as doing, helping out one of our offices, and now you're on your own. But you have a really unique situation, and I want to get into this because it's rad. But Hillary, just for those listening, tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
Yeah, so I grew up actually 60 miles west of Chicago, so out in the cornfields of Illinois, northern Illinois. Grew up surrounded. My dad grew up on a farm, corn, beans, everything like that. I grew up there. I actually met my husband there while he was doing his master's at NIU, and he's from Milwaukee, but he came down to South Alabama to do his undergrad. So we kind of ended up back here about 6 years ago. We jumped into the real estate game right when we got married. We flipped our first house, sold that, and then rolled everything into rentals. Got into the residential rentals, and we started off the bat with 14 units. So we had those through COVID, and we kind of saw the market hit the top and peak, and we decided now is our chance to, if we're going to sell, we're going to sell. So we sold everything. We actually got an off-market offer on one of them, and we listed the other. We sold everything, and kind of that's how we got to the point we are today.
Packed up and headed to Bama. Okay.
We did.
So had you ever lived down south at all? Like being from the Chicago area, like you're talking drastically different environments. So like,
yes.
What's it like going from Chicago to Alabama? Because I just wanted to, the coldest I have ever been in my life, I had a layover in Chicago, and I come from an area that -10, -20 is nothing that I even think about. Like I can function just fine, but the humidity with the cold, yes. I walked for a block and I quite literally thought that I was going to die. Like, there's no way I wasn't going to die walking one block in Chicago at -10.
Yeah. So my aha moment, I was born and raised there. I bought a house 15 minutes from where I grew up. So I was set. I worked as a 911 dispatcher. I'd been there for a few years. I was set. Like, I thought I was going to live there forever. But the aha moment was my husband worked in the waste industry. He was traveling about 3 weeks out of every month, and he was in St. Louis, and our pipes froze. Like, the real temp was -30, and our pipes froze. I had no water, couldn't flush toilets, nothing. He's like, "You ready to move yet?" Jokingly. And I'm like, "I think I am." Because I was without water for 3 days. And so that was kind of our moment where I'm like, let's just go for it. We don't have kids. And at that point, we were just 4 months married. I'm like, let's just jump in and do it.
Yeah, it was just a crazy thing for, like I said, I've never worried about temperature ever. And I've had people ask me about humidity, because the only thing I could factor in is the humidity coming off of just the area. And it was like every exhale, it was weird. It looked like I was vaping. Every time I exhaled, it looked like this crazy mist came out. And I'm like, I've never seen that. That's never happened. Because I mean, I've routinely been in that temperature, but never with that sort of environmental condition. Anyways, Chicago is different than Alabama.
Yeah. Like I think my first mistake, he moved before I did. He moved down March of that year of 2018, and I had to finish out a couple more months at the PD, and I didn't move until the end of May. And so he moved me in the start of one of the hottest months. And so I was here June, July were my first 2 months. And at first I was questioning, like, what did we do? Because I had never experienced a summer in the South and I was in for it.
Yeah, you become an ingredient for a low country boil at that point.
Yes. But now this past summer was the first summer I was actually outside working out, and I worked 6 days a week outside with him, June, July, August. And honestly, I think that conditioned me. And now the hot doesn't really bother me too much.
That's I commend you on that. I think that's something I cannot do.
Yeah.
Okay, you have like you started out, like we said, you started out helping out one of our offices there in Alabama, Gulf Coast office for us, and have since transitioned, gotten your real estate license, working in real estate. But this is for a very specific enterprise, and so I want you to tell us all about this because we're talking about basically an RV area, and
Mhm.
you've basically transferred land into an RV. Like, do you call it an RV park or is it RV? Like, do you have a name for? I don't want to.
We call it an RV resort because
RV resort.
we wanted a good mix. So along the Gulf Coast, there's a lot of campgrounds. So not very many amenities and anything within the campground. Besides, sometimes they have a pool, small laundry center, small welcome center. So we wanted really more of a resort-like feel, very similar to across the bay, which in Baldwin County, along Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, kind of those popular areas that are big touristy locations. So we wanted more of a resort-like feel.
Yeah. So give us your pitch. You're like, I want to like throw out this is 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah.
RV resort, Alabama. Throw us the name and how to find you guys.
Yeah, so we have Paradise Found RV Resort. My husband and I, like I said, we had originally done the residential rental thing. We were tired of the overhead when it came to replacing HVACs, replacing appliances, things like that. It was just monotonous things, one after the other, of tenants really not taking care of things. And once we sold everything, Ty and I kept driving through. On the weekends, we would go through RV resorts and we would start driving through it. And it was right at the cusp of COVID when things were shutting down. Vacation spots were not able to take reservations for things, but the one thing that was able to was campgrounds and RV resorts. That was the peak of when everything went virtual. Schools, jobs that in the office setting realized they could go remote, and people could work full time while out on the road. So those locations were able to stay open through COVID, and it astronomically increased purchase sales of RVs went up 19% from 19 to 20. So everything kind of exploded within the RV industry. And so we kind of had our minds on that, thinking there's very little overhead when it comes to when you own an RV spot. If you were to rent it out to someone, there's essentially nothing to break. I mean, there's no HVAC. There's no big necessities that you would ever have to replace. So Ty and I have probably driven through like 150, 200 of these things all over. When we would travel back home, we drive through northern ones just to see the differences, because there are massive differences, especially to those that have to close seasonally because they freeze up there. So we started driving through them, and he started really doing his due diligence. We found a piece of property actually down the road from where we ended up settling. We did our due diligence for a couple of months. It ended up not working out. And then we found this property that was actually listed by National Land, by Clint Flowers. So that's actually how the full circle, how I knew of him and met Clint, through NLR.
Oh, so you purchased this before you even started with National Land. You met him during the deal. Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, he was actually the listing agent. It was right around 45 plus or minus acres. And so that was kind of the first I had heard of his name, I passed the sign a million times, but then once Ty and I actually walked the property and he gave us some information on it, and that's initially how I met him.
So as you're going through this, are you looking at things like traffic patterns, like things that could draw people in that they would want to hang out and go view?
Yes. I mean, there is essentially one way in and one way out to Dauphin Island. So Dauphin Island's really the main big beach area that would be closest to us. It's about 10 miles south of us. One unique thing about Dauphin Island is they have a town ordinance where there is no chain restaurants, no chain anything. Everything is mom and pop boutiques, bars, grills, everything. So it really has like a homey local feel to it. And so to get to Dauphin Island, you have to pass by us on Dauphin Island Parkway. So that was a huge, huge selling point. But the biggest selling point of them all is we are waterfront along the mouth of Fall River, which opens up into Mobile Bay. And we're Mobile County's only waterfront RV resort or campground for that matter.
Gotcha. So you spotted a piece of land that had all the things, and you got the
Mhm.
view, and you've got the exit. So that's what I was curious about as you were looking at this. And so,
Mhm.
did you get the idea just like, but from like you said, driving by? Like, I mean, what I'm just imagining moving to a new state for the first time and like getting rid of the rentals, and you're hanging out, and you're like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start an RV resort. And but like, how does that come up?
So my husband is very much honestly, this was all his idea. I was truthfully not on board initially. I grew up with parents that worked 9 to 5s and weren't independent contractors or anything like that, which there's nothing wrong with it. I was shaking in my boots the thought of putting money into rental properties or buying large pieces of land and doing that, getting into that type of venture. So he was very much the risk taker and had to push me along with getting on board. Looking back at it now, I wish I would have started doing rentals years and years ago. But it honestly started with us driving through all along anywhere from New Orleans all the way to Destin. We would just drive on Saturdays and Sundays and plot out maps of different resorts and campgrounds we could drive through. We would take a notebook, take pictures, and I would jot notes of things we liked seeing in those resorts along the way and things that I thought would be cool to integrate into ours.
So this is a well thought out thing. Like, and I
Mhm.
feel with a lot of married couples that I meet, there is one that does the off the beaten path things, and
Yes.
there's the other one that keeps them from like driving off of the cliff, right? Like there's
Mhm.
if you don't have that balance, you have all crazy or you have all reserved. So it's one of those
100%.
because and I speak from I'm very lucky to have breaks as my other half because it really helps me. So that kind of balance always matters. But
Mhm.
you both had an idea, and I feel like that probably made you slow down, think about it, come up with a
Mhm.
plan instead of diving like, which is fine if you dive in, but being able
Yeah.
to think about it definitely helps you sort of orient things. So when you came up with this resort was sort of how you ended up thinking about it as sort of like a higher end RV setup.
Mhm.
So what's sort of the process of like, so you took that land and built it up and then you rent lots, or how's the
So
function of
initially
it?
we have the 45 acres. We did sell off. We had a small peninsula across the water that we ended up selling. It's actually a bird sanctuary now. So we have about 40 acres left. And so we had 246 sites is the concept that we were able to draw up with the engineer. Initially, we were only going to sell 1 through 65. We had those for sale and we had sold the initial first 10, but throughout the sales process, we kept having more and more buyers say, well, I'm interested in the other ones if you're ever going to open those up. So we kicked it around and went round and round. And Ty's like, why not? Let's just open up the entire map, see what we can sell. And then, of course, we'll come to a point where we'll stop and retain some still so we can have that rental income. So we opened the sales up, and we actually, as of today, we're right at like 75 pre-sales. We're obviously still under construction. And so when you buy it, it's a deeded RV lot. You own it. You can do with what you want with it. You can either use it for yourself, which we do have about 50% using them for themselves, or you can rent it out. So we'll actually have on-site staff that they can manage the rental for you. You give a calendar to us and we will rent it out to those transient campers who want to come in and rent daily, weekly, or monthly, or just stop by for a visit.
And then what are the amenities that you have provided out there? Like, I'm just curious about what the setup is.
Yeah, so we have three main buildings, kind of almost in a U shape. The main building is going to be our welcome center. So that's where you go in, check in initially when you come. But the other 2,000 square foot of that building is actually going to be rented to an on-site restaurant that's local down on Dauphin Island. They currently have two restaurants. They have a bar and grill and a pizza and wings. So they're going to do a combo on site. So they'll have that on site. We'll have a full bathhouse. We're going to do family bathrooms more than a locker room setting, which again is kind of reverting more to the luxury feeling, more than having a locker room. We'll have full on-site fitness center, laundry room, pool, hot tub, game and rec room that'll have a golf simulator. We actually just poured, about 2 weeks ago, we poured our pickleball courts. I have 4 pickleball courts, a half basketball court and sand volleyball court. And then I think, dog park as well. The biggest attraction of them all, though, is that we are working on our marina permit. So we reapplied for the same permit that the previous owner had that we had purchased the property from. And so it's going to have deeded boat slips as well. So we're hoping that it is in the works, but we're hoping to get that all cleared soon.
I'm going to throw this out there as this is, I mean, that's what I'm hearing here is it's a bring your own bedroom hotel.
Essentially. Yeah. Yeah.
I love this.
We have so many owners. So it's a good mix of, I would say, investors who are purchasing them purely for rental investment, because as you know, with real estate prices and residential housing being so high and through the roof, they can't get cap rates and a good return on their houses right now. So we have a handful that'll just strictly rental. The other half are actually, I bet I have about 8 to 10 that'll live full time on site. They've sold their house and they'll just live here. But then what's unique is I have another handful that are going to either drop their RVs or motorhomes and be able to fly back home to wherever home is. Usually a lot of our owners are up north. Will be able to fly down and essentially have their bedroom set up and everything ready to go, drop in and stay for a week or two and come back and at their leisure.
So you took a blank piece of ground and made a resort.
We did.
Which is very cool. Were there any kind of unexpected things that came up during the process? I can imagine at jumping into this, having not done it before, there's a learning curve.
Yes, I have learned that patience is key. I don't have patience. I've learned that the permitting process is always going to take much longer than you anticipate. I wish, looking back at it, that we would have projected out way further out. I think we thought that we would hit the boots on the ground and get rolling, and it took way longer than we thought. So I wish I would have projected farther out opening. As far as that, and also just take day to day. With me not being the one to jump into things, and I'm the overthinker of the two of us. I wish that now I know it. I just take it day by day. I'll just figure out the task at hand the next day, because if I sit there and spiral on in construction, you have no control over supplies, weather. Weather's the biggest thing for us, because as you know, Mobile is extremely rainy. And so when we had 4.5 inches on Tuesday, and we've been kind of just down without being able to pave asphalt or put up our buildings or anything for the next few days until we dry out. So it's just kind of a day by day.
What are the specific, I mean, can you recall some of the permitting that you had to go through to set up an RV park? Like, I'm curious about that just in general.
Yeah, so obviously during the due diligence period, we did your normal survey, wetlands delineation, things like that. My suggestion is to find a fantastic engineer, which we have. He has been amazing to work with. I can't tell you how many times we would redo the layout. And I swear, I mean, he's had the most patience with Ty and I, because we've kept adjusting things, but we wanted to make it exactly how we wanted it. So he helped guide us. I think he's been an engineer for a little over 25 years. And so he really guided us through the entire process of understanding the permitting, and Ty did a ton of due diligence. And just finding on Facebook so many different investor groups and piggybacking off of those who have already done concepts like this has been a massive help. That was probably one of my biggest positive wins in early on in is joining the Facebook groups of people like us that are doing projects similar across the US to bounce ideas off or pick up the phone and call and work through a problem. Just having those people who understand the industry in your back pocket.
Oh yeah. So I'm guessing so each lot has a power supply. Does each lot also have like a sewer dumpage or what's the terminology? Help me out.
Yep. So there's water and sewer hookups at each one.
There is water and sewer hookups. Okay.
Yep. So the nice thing is that since it is a deeded lot, each individual lot has its own power pedestal. So it will have an individual Alabama Power bill. However, the entire resort is on the same water and sewer. So that's actually included. We do have a monthly HOA fee, but your water, sewer, Wi-Fi, all of that is included in it.
So HOA, so you can't bring up the Breaking Bad wagon and set that up. Is that do you mandate how they have to look?
So we actually have a requirement because I wanted to keep the aesthetic of that, just that. And so you have to be 20 years or newer, 20 feet or longer. As far as sheds and things like that, we've teamed up with Tough Shed. So there are only specific things that are allowed within the resort. And anything additional that needs to be built or added on has to be run by Ty before anything is built, because I don't want a pink shed next to a big yellow canopy or anything like that.
Gotcha. I'm kind of disappointed. I really wanted to go up in a giant rusted out Winnebago and
right.
So people you have permanent residents, and then you have the people that cycle through. Do you divide up the areas so like rental areas separate from the deeded lots? Are those divided up, or so
they're actually all deeded, but I would say if I had to kind of give a guesstimate, a lot of our full-timers per se are going to be along the waterfront and on those lots closer to the water. A lot of the rentals or those investors that have purchased for the rental investment have hovered close to the amenities building so that people can hop over to the pool or hop over to the sports courts really quickly.
Got you. Okay. So when you did this, you looked all around at other RV areas. Did you build it off of differentiating from other RV setups, or did you find stuff to copy? But I guess the question is there anything else like that around you? Did you do that intentionally?
So the biggest draw for us was Ty and I knew we wanted water frontage, because Ty has always said to me, like, we will never own a boat unless we have a deeded boat slip, because he doesn't want to fuss with pulling the boat in and out constantly. So water frontage, having that was ideal. Essentially, along Mobile County, there's only a handful of public boat launches and areas for that. And coincidentally, there's a restaurant right down the road from us, like a 2-minute drive. You can drop in for $5. The county purchased the property adjacent to us as well. They're going to be building a public boat launch right around the corner from us. So that was another huge perk. So Dauphin Island hosts fishing tournaments almost every weekend of June, July, and parts of August. And so having that draw to the island, especially in the summer months, and having the water here, allowing our owners and our guests to be able to walk out there, fish right off of the water frontage and have that available was huge for us. I knew that would be a big amenity.
Yeah. So what, I mean, it's such a unique opportunity. What would decide success or failure of something like this?
Honestly, I think that we're in a perfect spot that along the Gulf Coast, I always, when buyers come on site and they're new to the area or they've never been down here, one of the huge perks for me too is that we're so centrally located along I-10. I mean, we're 45 to 50 minutes from Biloxi, 2 hours to New Orleans. We're an hour to Pensacola, an hour and a half to Destin. So you can get to so many places for quick day trips. And I think that has led into a lot of our success is the location of where we are.
Gotcha. So I mean, and I could imagine that being the case is like you could throw
Mhm.
something awful out there in the right location and still get a good
Oh
amount of
yeah.
business. Location is kind of the key, right? Like you
Hmm.
want to be in a highly trafficked area. Put something like this in an area that nobody goes to, and you're probably in trouble. It's probably
Right.
the basic idea. Um,
Yeah.
so when you're selling lots, how do you
Mhm.
figure out this process? Like, is this something that, as a business plan, I could imagine because you're selling out a spot and then you manage the overall area.
Mhm.
How did you figure all this out?
I have to give that one to my husband. My husband did, he worked, well, he still worked his full time job maybe 4 years ago. He started all the due diligence of this and started really diving into it and creating that circle of those who were familiar with the industry and just playing ideas off of them. After about a year of him working his full time job and balancing this at the same time, we took the dive and he quit his job and worked on the project full time. So that's when he and a group of others started to develop all of the HOA docs, the rules and regs, the purchase agreements, and I can't tell you how many countless hours he spent with that group of individuals, as well as the title company attorneys and everybody, that the team that essentially created all of our docs with us. He's spent countless hours and hours on it. So that's he takes the trophy on that one.
And so do owners, they own the lot in perpetuity, or is there a time? Is like how's
So
the process?
it's it's deeded. They own it. I like to tell buyers that or potential buyers that it's kind of like a condo. It's like buying a condo down at the beach. So you do have the HOA fee, but you own that lot. It's deeded. You'll get a tax. You'll get a tax bill at the end of the year and everything. But again, another huge thing that I don't think people realize is that a lot of those resorts or condos do have rental restrictions. And sometimes you're not able to rent out your lot 100% of the time or even 50% of the time. So we wanted to be able to create a place that people could still earn rental income when they're not using it to be able to make it feasible for the normal person to purchase. Because our lots start at just 79,000. Initially, when we started the project, they started at 69. And once we got to a certain threshold, we raised the pricing. But you go across the bay to Baldwin County, which is about an hour from us, along Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. I mean, they start anywhere from 150 and up.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I actually
That's
pulled comps from Baldwin County for the last 8 months this week. And the highest comp I found for a deeded RV lot with just a single driveway, no add-ons, like no buildings or anything on it, it was 430,000.
that is a house.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's right on the beach.
Right.
It's fantastic frontage right along Orange Beach, and it's a great location to be able to. I mean, you walk out of their resort and you are on the sandy beach. So it's a great location, but the pricing compared to Baldwin County, I mean, we're so much more feasible to the normal everyday person.
Yeah, I mean, you're opening my mind to an entirely different world than anything
Mhm.
I've experienced. So tell
Yeah.
me about your customers. Backgrounds or because some of these, like you said, are investors that are just making
Mhm.
rental income. Some of them are there full time. Some of them are there part time and then rental income the rest of the time. Tell
Mhm.
me sort of what you see as far as maybe some demographics or what's your
Yeah.
typical kind of customer.
I would say our current owner pool 40 and up, really. I would say a good chunk of them too are right at that cusp of in their 50s, teetering on the 5 to 7 year retirement plan. They want to purchase now so that they can buy it, start paying on it, earn the rental income off of it, and by the time they're retired, it's paid off, so that they can enjoy it essentially mortgage free and in the clear. So I would say a good 40 and up. However, we're not a 55 and up. There is no age restriction or anything like that. We do have a handful of younger families that have purchased, but I would say about 50 or 60% would be about in that 40 to 50 range.
Got you. And then,
Mhm.
and you had mentioned I love your phrasing on this, there's sort of a triangle of ownership is what
Mhm.
you said. And that had to do with sort of season chasing, right? Like
Yeah.
the snowbirds. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously you're there permanently in your area, but
Mhm.
these people have like, this is a this is not an uncommon lifestyle. I have never been, I haven't traveled all that much in doing RV things.
Mhm.
So tell me about sort of this cycle and sort of what these people are doing.
So it's wild. I never knew of this until I started really talking to owners and meeting owners on site. And a lot of our owners that purchase 2 to 3 to 4 different lots throughout the US, and they will follow the triangles. A good chunk of them mostly have one out on the East Coast. They'll have one down by us or along the Florida area. And then they go out west to either Arizona, California, they're really popular areas, or New Mexico. And whether it be a family member, they want to be near a family member, or they want to chase the seasons, whatever has the best weather, they'll just drive in a constant triangle and just chase whatever has either an event going on, the best weather, or whatever it may be. And I never realized that that was a thing. But when you think about 3 to 4 RV lots priced right around that 70 to 100,000 range, once they sold their house, it kind of made up for, they were able to buy 3 or 4 different tiny house locations or RV locations for that amount.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here talking like this is this crazy new concept, and there's people out there that've been
Mhm.
doing this for years. Like, duh, dummy. Like, it's like because there is a lot of people that do that, but it's just new to
Mhm.
me. And by doing what you're doing right now, you become part of that process.
Mhm.
So from the investor standpoint, as people are buying these, I'm very curious about this. It's a very cool concept of like buying the land, renting it out. Is this like a business plan for them? Is this is like, okay, we do this and we rent lots and they just
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. So I have an investor package put together. I have a couple different I just had one call me from up north this week. He gave me a total of what he needed me to work with, and he looked at a map and told me where he wanted to base where he wanted his lots at for the most part. And I put together a package for him that worked under that total budget amount. And we went from there. And I provided everybody at a certain occupancy rate, what we project, um, kind of just creating essentially a brochure of all of the ifs, ands, or everything that would be included within the resort. So we have the investor packages available, but we also have those that have purchased just single lots. We have a handful that have bought two, one to live on or use for themselves, and then one to rent out next to it.
Oh, so they let one sort of pay for the other one in a
Mhm.
way. And okay.
And be able to keep a close eye on it as well.
Yeah, don't mess up my lot. I like that. I own
Right.
that. I own that chunk of ground right there. Don't mess with it. And I
Right.
like that you spoke about it in terms of a condo. Like one other thing somebody had just posted something about where you buy a square footage of land in Scotland and then you get to call yourself a Lord of Scotland or something like that. It's not nearly as cool, right? Because it's only a square
Right.
foot. You can't stay on it. Um, when you're talking about doing this kind of setup, as somebody if somebody was wanting to do that as buy a lot and rent it out, what should they look out for? Like what makes a bad RV resort and what makes a good one, I guess is the better question.
Amenities.
Amenities.
Amenities, and put into that Wi-Fi. So reverting back
Mm.
to the COVID pandemic and going back into that time frame. Though the biggest complaints I would see on these forums is those full timers who still work full time, and they have crappy internet connection. And so that was one of the big things that Ty and I made a point to set aside enough money for, is to have a solid fiber budget to be able to, because Ty and I understand working out here. I mean, we struggled initially when we came on site, we struggled with internet connection. And so we made the investment and got Starlink a couple of months ago until our fiber is up and running. And we didn't realize how beneficial that was, because I was able to take Zoom calls and do all of the things that I normally would have to do back at our house, be able to do here. And so I think amenities, and also a lot of the investors, when they ask me what spot would you pick, I would pick close to the water, because when people come down to the Gulf Coast and you want a vacation, you want to see the water. It's normally those who aren't used to seeing it. And I think that I take that for granted. I mean, I have friends all the time. They're like, "How many times did you go to the beach in the last few weeks?" I'm like, none, because I just am so used to it being right there and I take it for granted.
I like that. And so you and your husband have been able to make this. You said when he was working. So I'm hearing that you are both full time in this right now. Like this is so. I mean, this you get to live and breathe this every day. Like this is the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's been full time at it now for 3 years. He's on site in our fifth wheel and manages everything. We have an office out of our fifth wheel. And so that initially we got that last summer because it was, I think, middle of July. And I'm like, we have to have some sort of reprieve from the hot weather. So we brought our fifth wheel out on site to be able to cool off for lunches, and we've left it here since. So I work out of there. I've been down here full time with him since the 1st of June of this year. So I'm on site, whether it be running errands for them, running to suppliers, meeting with buyers, or just kind of just managing. We have a lot of, now that the snowbirds are kind of coming down for the season, we normally have at least 2 to 3 stop by every day.
So you've come to Alabama unexpectedly to be like an RV entrepreneur.
Yes. And also, for those who don't own RVs, we did a certain amount of lots within the resort for RVIA certified tiny homes. So we do have those placed along the outer edges of the property.
Oh, so someone could just drop off a tiny home and okay.
I actually have a dealer. So I have a dealer on site. He has multiple floor plans available. He has a tiny home development out in South Carolina. And so I have him on site. We have a few models of tiny homes on site, actually. And so we've been working exclusively with him. So for those who are not into the motor coach RV industry, we do still have options.
I want you to know how much of my afternoon you are going to destroy with me Googling this now. Like I'm just fascinated by this now. This is such a cool concept.
Yeah.
And I think that state by state, there's a lot of opportunity zones for something like this. And I think that there's a ready-made audience, of clientele, of consumers that are ready to go with it. It's a very, very cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I can now Hillary 4 years ago could have never said I could envision living in a 38-foot fifth wheel, but now, I mean, my husband and I don't have kids, we don't have we don't have animals, and we do it, and I love it. Like I understand the concept of tiny living. I mean, we spend 99% of our time outside. We come in to eat and shower, and that's about it. And I love the industry. I've eat, sleep, breathe. I mean, it's everything for us.
That's fantastic. I love this. This is the coolest story. Anything that you want to mention? I want to give you I want to give you the floor. Like anything you want to mention before we jump off here.
No, I just want to, if everybody wants to check us out, we're on Facebook. I do
Yes.
biweekly updates. So I actually normally the NLR guys, Will Ivy, actually helped me out this week. He came out and snapped some drone images for me. So I do send out drone images so we can see construction updates, progress, and everything like that every 2 weeks. I do just kind of like what we wrapped up with construction for the previous week, what our goal is for the next week, just because the owners like to see, especially those who aren't able, many of our owners aren't local. And so they don't get to put their feet on the ground and see the project every week. And so I make it a point to try and get those updates out. I'm trying to be better about Facebook and being out on social media for updates as well, just jumping on daily things that the guys worked on the dog park the other day. So I went live and was able to show everybody that. So if you want to check us out, we're on Facebook, on our website. It's paradisefoundrvresort.com. And we are starting to take reservations for your daily, weekly, and monthly rentals beginning in the spring of next year.
Got you. Make sure I have all those links. I'll get those all posted on the podcast thing itself. Also, I want to follow, like when your construction is complete, I want to follow up with you. Because I just realized I want to hit you with some other questions of like, what's the weirdest thing you've encountered like, I want some stuff like that.
I think we bring on Ty and also kind of just like let him bounce some ideas, because he really he created this monster. But I do have to say, like, between all of all the different aspects of the NLR teams have helped me. I mean, the marketing team has helped me. The guys in the Gulf Coast office have helped me just bounce ideas off of, I mean, all around. So it really is a group effort. And that's one thing I love about NLR is I can pick up the phone and just kind of frantically call somebody, and normally somebody can help me through that issue.
Yeah, it is such a unique thing when you, I don't know, to clarify, she said NLR, the National Land Realty, like she'll hop on the phone with my team and stuff. And but like you are acting as a real estate agent on this site for the properties that you're dealing with. And it's just such a like I feel like land is just a niche unto its own, because when you think real estate, and you're like, oh no, we work with land real estate. It's different. We, 5 acres and up. But this is such a different universe than any of that. Like this is such a unique little topic. And I mean, you're also building an expertise in this that it is like you're doing your own whole thing here that could be a whole different separate enterprise. So the whole thing is cool.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so excited for the next like 3 or 4 months to wrap this all up, and then we'll have to jump back on once it's complete and kind of do a part 2 once we're open operational, and then we can kind of go through some more ups and downs along the way, so that Ty ultimately wants to have the consulting and development company to be able to help those like us 4 years ago have a guide along the way for this, because there is such a learning curve, but I cannot commend those who have in our circle who have helped us enough, because if we wouldn't have had them, we wouldn't have been able to do what we're doing now.
I'm really happy you just said that, because I mean, a fraction of a second about putting you on the spot, and I was like, nah, I shouldn't do that to you, because that's exactly what I wanted to say is like, should people get a hold of you if they are curious about developing this kind of investment or this kind of business, because I can imagine it's really, really easy to trip and fall, and it would be great for somebody to talk to. And you're already talking about how that is a business idea of yours. So the contact information will be on here. I know that's probably putting the cart before the horse because you're still building yours, but the opportunity is there, and I think the contact would be cool. So I will have that live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This concludes episode number 118 for the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing how to build an RV resort with Hillary Engler of Paradise Found RV Resort in Theodore, Alabama. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.